When I was 11 years old, I got punched in the nose by a kid at school because he didn't like where I was from. When I was 12, I got moved into a slower classroom because I wasn't catching on as quickly as the smart kids were. When I was 16, this girl that I was dating at the time, she told me that I was too short for her, and she stopped talking to me. When I was 17, I was told my invention ideas were stupid. When I was 18, I had to take a public speaking class in college, and I was so nervous that we had a 3-minute speech. About a minute and a half into my speech, I blacked out, and I don't remember a single word that I said. So I went straight to my backpack, I grabbed my backpack, I ran out of the classroom. And I went straight to my counselor's office, and I said, pull me out of this class, I am never stepping on a stage ever again. So my life has kind of come full circle, and it's a miracle that I'm standing up here talking to y'all today. But you see, my friends, we don't just happen to be born with limitations, right? It's little by little through these experiences that the world teaches us very quickly that we're nothing special. The things we really want in this life, they're not gonna come all that easy. So you might as well sit down, shut up, and stop dreaming. And little by little, we start to believe that we're not good enough, we're not qualified, we don't have what it takes. Somebody else deserves what we really want, and the world little by little bends and breaks us into submission. And then we start to develop these beliefs. And that was me. Henry David Thoreau once said that the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation, meaning they exist, but they're not really living. They show up, they're going through the motions. They know that they have a lot more to offer, but they're not bringing that out to the world, and it slowly starts to eat away at them. And for me, by the time it came time for me to graduate high school, go to college, I had no idea what I wanted to do anymore with my life. See, I was a kid with big dreams and big ideas, but little by little, the world broke me into submission, and so I was no longer thinking very much of myself. So I did the next best thing. I did what everyone told me I should do. And here's the problem. When you do what everyone tells you you should do, most of the time people aren't going to see your greatest potential. Most of the time people aren't going to speak into your life what you really want to do. They're just going to put their own limitations on you. And so for me, when I graduated high school, I went to college, I got a degree, and I got a job. And I became depressed, and I became miserable. And I went through this 2-year period of my life where I was just showing up to work, and I would sit in my car, and I would try to convince myself to go in instead of driving away. It's not that it was a bad job, it's not that it was a bad career, it's that I wasn't doing what I knew. I knew I had a lot more potential, I knew I had a lot more to offer to the world, and I certainly wasn't doing it. And I hated myself for it because I'm this kid of immigrant parents. I'm this kid who had these big ideas. My parents sacrificed so much to give me this opportunity, and here I was wasting it away. And so it was in this period of my life that I started to go, I knew something needed to change, so I started to study the lives of successful people. Men and women from all over history, men and women who are alive today, who are successful not just financially, but in the way that they impact their communities, in their leadership abilities, and the way that they influence people. And I started to notice these common principles that these people would always attribute their success to. And I started to incorporate these principles into my life, and my mindset started to change. And my beliefs in myself started to change again. And so that's what I want to share with you. I want to share with you these 11 principles, because for me, they helped me get back on track in my life when I needed them most. And my promise to you is that if you apply these principles into your life, that things are going to start to change for you. No matter what adversity or obstacles life sends your way, you're going to be able to stay on track. Look, I'm looking around this room right now, and I can tell you this is a room full of brilliant people. Is this not a room full of brilliant people? A room full of smart people, talented people. But I also know from personal experience, speaking in rooms like this with this many people, I know that there's a lot more people that walked in here today with smiles on their faces. And on the outside, everything seems like it's just fine. And on the inside, things aren't going so good. And maybe things aren't going so good at home. And maybe things aren't going so good at school. And I don't know what you're dealing with, but today, for you, I want to say, never ever give up. Because my friends, I believe that one day we're going to look back on our lives. And we'll ask ourselves whether we made the right choices. Whether we did everything in our power to become the people that we wanted to become. Did we uphold our family values? Did we live up to our expectations? Did we follow that little dream that we once had? Or did we let the world bend and break us into submission? Did we rob the world of the gift that only we can bring to it? Tame your tongue. Someone very brilliant once said that life and death are in the power of the tongue. Words have power. Words are like seeds, and every single day, the conversations that you have with people, the interactions that you have, that gives you an opportunity to plant seeds into the minds of other people. And in the same way, you are planting seeds into your own mind by the conversations, by the thoughts that you have. For me, one of the biggest obstacles in my life was not outside circumstances. It was the story that I was telling myself. I always reminded myself of why I'm not good enough, why I'm not qualified, why I don't have what it takes, why somebody else deserves what I really want. And the more that I told myself that story, the more opportunities I kept preventing myself from. And so I want you to understand, if you want to do extraordinary things, if you want to live with purpose, you have to start to change that self-talk. Start to remind yourself of why you're qualified, or why you should pursue it, or why you must achieve what you want to achieve, as opposed to giving yourself all the reasons for why you can't. You could be the only person in someone's life that sees something in them before they even see it in themselves. And you can use the power of your word to speak that into their life, and you can be the person that sets them up on path to their purpose. And this comes with a warning, because you could also be that person in someone's life that says something to someone at the wrong time in the wrong way, and you can destroy their self-confidence, destroy their self-worth, and you can pull them away from their purpose. Pay attention to the way you talk. Try this for 30 days. If this doesn't work out for you, you can always go back to being negative. But for 30 days, change the way you talk, watch your life change. This is about having vision and a destination, knowing where you're headed. See, you and I, as human beings, we are the only creatures on earth that have this ability to step into the future. We have the ability to imagine. There's something called imagination. And we can see ourselves in the future. We can set a destination in our mind, and we can start moving towards it. And then we can step back into today, and we can compare the choices and decisions that we're making today with that end destination. And if we're not headed in the right direction, we can make a course correction. And so living with the end in mind is constantly setting yourself that end destination, setting yourself that vision. Know where you're headed and compare. Hey, am I still on the right track? Am I still moving to where I'm going? There's a lot of people that drift like ships, right? Ships without a captain. And eventually they end up on the shore, right? If a ship is floating and it has no captain, eventually it drifts on shore. And so many times people are resilient, they're strong, they're motivated, they're working hard, but they don't set themselves that clear destination. And they don't even realize when they're off track. Live with the end in mind. In all things, be filled with gratitude. Gratitude is like medicine for the body. Science has already proven that to us, that people who write in a gratitude journal, people who wake up and they have a better perspective on life, they count their blessings as opposed to the things that are going against them. These are people who live longer, happier lives. Why? They have less stress in their bodies. You can't be full of anxiety if you're full of gratitude. You can't be full of fear if you're full of gratitude. Now, there's a lot of fear going on right now. Being grateful doesn't mean that you don't have problems. It's that you don't lose perspective in the midst of your problems. And when you can maintain that attitude, maintain that perspective, that's what allows you to lead in the moments that require you to lead. It's perspective. See, because when you understand that to some future version of yourself, these are the good old days, it allows you to stay present in that moment. So every season of life, we're always looking to the next thing. When we're in middle school, we're like, I can't wait to get to high school. When we're in high school, we're like, I can't wait to get to college. I can't wait to work. I can't wait to start pursuing my career. And it's good to have dreams. We just talked about living with the end in mind. But this is about understanding at every season of life, whether things are going your way or not, soaking in, squeezing the juices out of life and embracing those moments. That's what allows you to keep moving forward and nothing throws you off track. Each day, give of yourself more than you ever have before. This is about growth. How can I be just a little bit better today than I was yesterday? How can I make some sort of improvement? You know, they say some people brighten the room when they show up, and some people brighten the room when they finally leave. All right? So which one are you? Do you brighten the room when you show up, or do you brighten the room when you finally leave? And in order to be the kind of person that brightens the room when you show up, you got to be a person of growth. You got to be a person who's always learning, always having a new perspective, always having new conversations. See, you can't pour out from an empty cup. And so finding ways to refill, finding ways to do those things that you're passionate about so you have more to give and you're not getting burnt out. A river's got flowing water, and a pond is dirty because it's got that same nasty, stale water in there year after year. My friends, in many aspects of our lives, we become a little bit like a pond. We stop growing. We stop learning. We stop having new conversations. We don't step out of our comfort zone. And so my challenge for you with this one is be more like a river. Don't we all have a blame list, right? We all have a list of reasons for why we're not where we want to be, why we have a certain attitude, what everyone else around us needs to change in order for us to be happy. And the more we hold on to that list, the harder we fall. Develop a burning desire. This is about having something bigger to fight for and going after it with everything that you have. I learned in my life, I learned that there's a difference between extraordinary people and ordinary people. Not that one group is more talented or smarter or has more opportunities. It's that extraordinary people, when they wake up in the morning, they know exactly what it is that they're fighting for. They have a goal, they have a destination, and most of the time that goal is so much bigger than they are right now, so it forces them to grow. And ordinary people, equally talented, equally have as much to offer to the world, but they usually have their schedule already made out for them. There's no need for them to grow. And when you don't have a bigger goal, a bigger dream, there's no need for you to change. But here's the problem. Life sends us obstacles, and eventually life will shake you up a little bit. And so if you're a person that is not growing, eventually you can get thrown off track. I always tell people, I don't like to hang out with people who don't have big dreams. It's not because I think I'm better than anyone. It's because people who don't have big dreams usually end up making me feel stupid about mine, right? And you might have the same exact experience. People who don't have a bigger destination, they're not growing, they're not working towards something, they're usually spending their time talking about everyone else. And so if you have something bigger to fight for, whether you're 14 years old or you're 84, in every season of life, there should be something that you're working towards, something that is so much bigger than who you are now. So it forces you out of your comfort zone. I ran out of my speech class in college. And so for me now to pursue this thing, there were so many fears and insecurities and obstacles that I had to face in order to achieve this thing. My friends, the whole purpose of a conference like this, to get together in a room like this, is to share ideas, to learn something new, to grow. But if you don't find a way to apply what you learned, then there's no point of getting together, right? And what that means is you take one small step in the right direction. You take action on what you learn. You immediately find a way to implement it. There's something called paralysis by analysis, where it's like the more time you give yourself between an idea and when you take action, the more opportunities you give yourself to talk yourself out of it. My brothers and I, we were driving to a wedding. I was about 17 years old. Driving to a wedding, and we got into a little bit of a road rage with this psycho lady on the freeway. Let me explain. So we were driving, and either we cut her off or she cut us off. I don't remember how the whole thing started, but this lady decided that she wanted us off the freeway. She's flipping us off, she's throwing things at us, she's calling us all sorts of names. And my brother Andre is driving, my brother Igor is in the passenger seat. And I'm in the back seat. And my brother Andre turns to me and he's like, Mike, I don't know what this lady's capable of, I'm not gonna stick around to find out, buckle up. He steps on the gas, we're going about 80 miles an hour down the freeway. This psycho lady catches up to us, swerves across 3 lanes of traffic, rams the back of my brother's SUV. The entire SUV spins out, back left tire snaps off, and we start rolling down the freeway. And I'm in the back seat, and I didn't have time to buckle up. And so I'm bouncing around the car, I'm bouncing off the roof, I'm bouncing off the doors, I'm trying to find things to grab onto. Eventually the car landed on its roof, skid for about another 100 yards before it finally came to a stop. All 3 of us, my brother Andre, my brother Igor, and I always attribute it to a miracle. I don't know how it happened. We came out of that car without a single scratch on us. Amen. Thank you. Appreciate you. I remember, I'll never forget, the ambulance lady, she comes running up. She looks at us. She looks at the car. She realizes we're the kids that came out of the car. She said, y'all are golden boys. Because she said nobody should have came out of that car alive. Yeah. Now, you can bet that was a little moment of inspiration for me. There's something called mortality motivation. Mortality motivation is like when you have a near-death experience, you have a close call, it changes things. You get clarity in your life. You realize, hey, there's a bunch of things in my life that I've been wasting my time on that are not that important. There's a bunch of things in my life that I've been neglecting, or people in my life that I have not been treating the best. And it gives you this clarity, and I had this clarity, and I was going to change my life. I don't like who I was at the time. But about a week later, all the drama, all the emotion from the accident faded, and nothing changed in my life. Why? No implementation process. I didn't take a single step in the right direction. I didn't apply a single one of those principles or one of those ideas into my life. I didn't make a single change. One of my favorite speakers, Jim Rohn, he's an old school guy, but he used to say, if a guy's an idiot and you motivate him, he says nothing changes. You have yourself a motivated idiot running around. My friends, don't jump from book to conference, absorbing ideas and inspiration and not applying it. Motivation is a good thing, but it's a feeling. And feelings fade, and that's why taking action is required. How many times you get a good idea and you're like, that's a great idea, this is what I want to do, and then a little time passes and you're like, maybe it wasn't the best idea. And you talk yourself out of it. It's not that it was a bad idea, it's that you didn't find a way to implement it. When I was first getting into this whole public speaking thing, I had written a couple of books, and my next step in my dream was to become a motivational speaker. I wanted to follow in the footsteps of a man named Augmendino, who inspired me to be an author and a motivational speaker. And I remember one of my first opportunities was to do a commencement speech. And I don't know how I tricked this principal into hiring me for this commencement speech. But we signed the contract, we get on the phone call with the principal, and he's like, Michael, thank you so much, we're so excited to have you. So we're expecting about 5,000 people in attendance. And I remember my heart sank. I remember thinking, how do you guys have 5,000 people show up to it was a small school, small town? And I immediately felt unqualified. I was like, what the heck did I just get myself into? Immediately the fear starts to wash over you. I remember my wife and I, we drove down to that town. We're staying at a hotel the night before. And I can't sleep. I'm just like this. I'm pacing around the room. And I'm telling my wife, I'm like, hey, baby, it's not too late. We can jump into the car, we can pack up, we can get the hell out of here, right? And if the principal calls me tomorrow, I'm not gonna pick up the phone. Forget the speaking thing. I didn't know why I was so scared. I remember telling myself, hey, if this is actually my purpose, if this is the dream, it shouldn't be this scary. Clearly, this is the wrong thing. I should not be pursuing this. And the next day, I'm so glad I didn't drive away. I got up onto that stage and my hands were shaking the whole time and I delivered the presentation. Something that I was so afraid to do, something I felt like I was not qualified to do, ended up impacting so many people. What I'm trying to say is that fear is gonna be there, my friends. Fear is gonna be there. You can't remove it. This is a lifelong journey, it's a lifelong thing, right? I always tell people, you wanna do extraordinary things with your life? You might as well make fear your best friend. Fears might as well be, just like you see my shadow following me around. If you wanna do extraordinary things, that's gonna be fear. It is always gonna be there because you're always gonna be required to do something you're not yet comfortable with. Fear is not an indicator that you're headed in the wrong direction. Most of the time, it's an indicator that you're going in exactly the direction that you need to go, because that means there's room for growth there. Always persist. Persistence is not about blindly ramming your head into a brick wall hoping that you break through. In fact, Einstein said that's the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over again hoping you get a different result. Persistence is growth in the process. As you got rejected, oh, they told you no, you got a rejection letter? How do I get better in the process? How do I try again? How do I market myself better? How do I improve in the process? Then I come back and then I try again. The world is full of people who got knocked down for their final time and they stopped getting back up. You get a no, try again. You keep trying, you keep coming back, and you grow in the process. Winston Churchill said it like this. He said, success is the ability to go from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. You're a creature of habit. In your brain, you have something called neurons and neural pathways. The more you repeat a thought, the more you repeat an action, the more these neurons, they fire and they wire and they start to come together in these branch-like looking pathways in your brain. This is how your brain creates habits. It's trying to help you. It's trying to preserve your energy. Here's the problem. A lot of times we want to make a change and we want to do something different, but we've created a whole lifestyle of habits over a long period of time that got us to where we're at. My friends, I believe you and I, we are wired for human connection. I believe in something called unconditional love. Now, unconditional love is something that's really, really hard for human beings to grasp. We know what love is. We have love and kindness in our windows, in our posters. We love to talk about that until we find out that someone thinks differently than us. Now it's a whole different story. Unconditional love is showing respect for someone and having love for them, treating them with love, even if they hate your guts, even if they voted differently than you. Now that gets difficult. And I'm a man of faith, and I believe that it's possible. I believe you start to come back to that kind of mindset, that's where you start to live with purpose. That's where we can start coming back together. My grandfather, he said in the concentration camps, some of the worst days were wintertime. He said wintertime was brutal because most of them had already gotten really skinny. They didn't have too much clothing to wear, and so he said one morning the camp guards were marching them out to go work. They were making them dig trenches. And he says him and like 30 or 40 prisoners are walking down the side of a road, and there's a convoy that passes of supplies. And one of those trucks was a truck full of potatoes. And the truck hit a pothole. And a bunch of potatoes bounced out of the truck. And the next truck behind it ran over, smashed the potatoes. And the next truck smashed the potatoes. So now you had a bunch of smashed potatoes in the slush, in the snow. My grandfather said, some of the prisoners were starving so much they broke the line, they ran and started eating the potatoes off the ground. And the camp guards unloaded their machine guns and just executed everyone who was on the road. Every single night, my grandfather said, he saw so much death. He said every single night he asked himself, hey, when is my turn? He said one thing kept him going. He said there was guys that were worse off in camp than he was. They had sores on their feet. They were starving. He would find a way to steal a piece of bread. He would hide it in his jacket. Or he would steal a sock or a handkerchief, and he'd bring it back to camp, and he would find someone to serve. He said finding, as long as there was someone that he could give to, someone he could serve, someone that was worse off than him, he said that's what gave my life meaning. That's how I was able to take it one more day. My friends, sometimes we overcomplicate this idea of purpose. We think our purpose is chiseled on some gold tablet hidden in a cave somewhere. We got to go on this lifelong journey to discover our purpose. Then we'll know what we should do with our lives. Your purpose is to love one another. What you do on top of that with your gifts, your skills, your passions, your talents, your abilities is entirely up to you. Once you understand this concept, you have the freedom to become and do whatever it is that you want to do, and you will never struggle with purpose. Napoleon Hill said it like this. He said, whatever the mind conceives and believes, the mind can achieve. I believe everyone's got big dreams. Here's the problem. A lot of times we look at where we are and we look at our dreams and we say, I have no idea to get to where I want to go. We compare, and nothing in our life currently looks like the dream that we want, and so we eliminate ourselves. You don't have to have it all figured out, my friends. Your job is to see it in your mind and believe that it's possible for you and take one small step in the right direction. Now here's another success secret I'm going to tell you. I don't know how it happens. Leave it up to a power much greater than you, but when you believe it and you see it and you want it bad enough, the world is going to start to rearrange itself. Opportunities are going to start to come seemingly out of thin air. Someone's going to call you, someone's going to invite you, something's going to happen. That was my experience. I said, this is what I want to accomplish. I used to draw little sketches of myself speaking in front of audiences like this. I visualized myself holding my first book when I was still sitting in my cubicle. And it was that belief, I just kept moving towards it, and I started to see it up here. My vision in my mind became more of a reality to me than my current reality. And then all of a sudden, opportunities started to come in. When you have that mindset, nothing's going to stop you. My friends, inside of you right now are 700 muscles attached to 200 bones that allow you to stand up, walk around, move around. 2 gallons of life-giving blood that pumps through 12,000 miles of blood vessels that run from your toes all the way to your fingertips by a heart that beats 35 million times per year. 17 muscles in your face, and every time you smile, you release healing endorphins through your entire body. Lungs that expand into 20,000 breaths per day, keeping you alive without you ever needing to remind them to. You see, my friends, everything inside of you is fighting to keep you alive. The least you could do is start living.